Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, January 6th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over a lot of NFL stuff. We went over the tiers in the playoffs. We went over the power rankings. We went over Black Monday, and we went over Tyreek Hill. In this segment, we finish off our show with a little bit of a focus on baseball. The MLB is about to get back into it. I can't believe the offseason is almost over, just about a month until pitchers and catchers report, but there are still a couple of massive players still unsigned. Some international, some just looking to find a team after a huge year last season. We'll talk about all those guys, 5 of them I have to talk about here today, coming up in just a second. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a snowy Monday, January 6th. But like I was saying, we're going to get into our final segment of the day. Talk a little bit of baseball. It's been a bit since we covered some baseball. I believe the last thing we talked about was Juan Soto, and there's plenty of huge contracts that got handed out. We had a lot of first baseman movement. We had a couple of starting pitchers get moved, but there are a couple of guys that are still on the market that I would like to focus on today, and we're going to start off with the big international free agent, that being Roki Sasaki. Right? Sasaki has been rumored to a lot of different places. The phenom pitcher coming out of Japan is a guy that's not going to get that huge, massive contract that a lot of these other prospects coming out of the international circuit are going to get because he's coming a little bit early. So he's not eligible to get those massive contracts that, for instance, a guy like Shohei Ohtani got. But there are still a lot of teams that are looking to get him. And at the price tag, there should be about 30 teams that are in the market for him because he is someone that could be absolutely devastating. The teams that are always in the market for guys out of Japan, you have the Padres. Obviously, Yu Darvish being there, he was one of those guys that got a huge contract. He's someone that could convince people to come over. The Dodgers, they have Shohei Ohtani. Could convince people to come over, and the Mariners. Those three are always in it. The Mariners, of course, because they have Ichiro, one of the greatest baseball players of all time, legend in Seattle. He's kind of the face of that franchise. So those three are always in it, but there's a couple of other suitors that I think are worth talking about. First of all, the Yankees. They're going to go out and dish out that money. They're a team that could use some starting pitching, as well as, again, with every one of these pitchers, and I'm not sure if it's actually going to happen. I'm not sure if it really is because it doesn't seem like they're in on a lot of these guys, but every single starting pitcher that's on the market, every single elite starting pitcher that's on the market, I want to see the Orioles name attached in rumors to them because this is an Orioles team that is so close. This Orioles team is so talented. They just don't quite have that starting pitching caliber. They lose Corbin Burns. He walks, goes to the Diamondbacks. That was by far their best pitcher. They don't have the weapons behind him. They've got Grayson Rodriguez, who's fine, but he's not a true one. They need to go out. They need to get a couple of these guys. Sasaki is a guy that I would put a lot of resources into if I'm the Orioles, but I don't really see it going that way. I see Sasaki staying on the West Coast, going to one of those teams that already has a kind of Japanese foothold. It's hard to go halfway around the world, right? Not know anybody, not really have a lot of people that speak your language, which is why you see these kind of California and West Coast hubs that have that connection to former or current baseball players there, going to a lot of these places. The Mariners are a team that I think should make a huge push for him. The Padres, I think, will make a good push, and I think at the end of the day, he's going to end up with the Mariners. What they have in their pitching staff is as close as they're going to get to him. I think he wants to stay in a smaller market, so honestly, I do think it's between them and the Padres, but I think at the end of the day, they're going to end up going with the Mariners for Sasaki. That's someone to keep an eye on. Next up, Bregman. Alex Bregman, one of the premier third basemen on the market, and this is a third baseman that turned down a lot of money to stay with the Astros. There's a lot of teams that need third baseman, right? One of those teams that needs a third baseman that screams out to me about Alex Bregman is the Washington Nationals. Nationals. Now, as a Nationals fan, I don't necessarily want Alex Bregman to come in. I don't think he fits the timeline. But right now, they have maybe the worst third base situation in the league. They also have a lot of money to work with. They didn't attempt to go out and get really one of those big free agents. They have one of the lowest payrolls in the entire league. They can go out and get a guy like Alex Bregman. Give him the term. Give him money. Let him go play DH eventually when you call up a guy like Brady House to go play third base. That's someone that I think the Nats could and might target because they have a lot of money left over as they head towards the end of the offseason. Anthony Santander. He just is coming off his huge power season with the O's. The O's already replaced him. They went out and they got Tyler O'Neill, so a reunion seems a little bit unlikely. There are plenty of teams that could use power, whether it be the Blue Jays. They need another guy that can hit. They've got a lot of defense, but a guy that can hit would be huge for them. That's one that I've seen a lot. The Red Sox, they could always use another power bat there. Everyone could always use another power bat. The Yankees are a team that I think could be interesting, especially with the departure of Juan Soto. He's not going to be nearly as good as Juan Soto is, but being able to fill that empty spot, that power spot that Juan Soto had, play a little bit of left field. You can slide Verdugo over to right field if you do decide to re-sign him. But the team that I think is going to end up eventually dishing out the most amount of money for him is the San Francisco Giants, right? They always seem to be in the mix for some of these big guys, but the Giants are a team that just haven't quite landed one yet. Anthony Santander, coming off of a huge season, it's a big ballpark. I'm not sure if it's the best spot for him to go, but Camden Yards, also a pretty big ballpark, and he was just fine over there. I think the San Francisco Giants end up landing the big fish that is Anthony Santander, getting one of the best premier power bats that is out there. The last real first baseman is on the list here. That is Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso, kind of the face of the Mets for a very long time. He is a free agent, and he's not getting the offers he wants. The Mets gave him a low ball offer. That's the last I heard from him, but I can't imagine him anywhere else but the Mets, right? I thought there'd be a lot of teams that kind of chased him. A lot of teams that could have chased him, right? Teams like the Texas Rangers, who traded away Nathaniel Lowe to the Nationals. The Nationals were a team that I thought could go after him. Again, they signed Josh Bell, traded for Nathaniel Lowe. I don't think he's a guy that is really on their radar anymore. But I think at the end of the day, he's going to end up taking a bit of a discount, come back to the Mets, and join Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor as the third of that big three trio that could really wreck the NL if they get him back. And finally, the last one, number 5 on my list, the last one I really wanted to talk about here. There's a lot more big free agents, but Jack Flaherty, traded from the Tigers to the Dodgers, helps them win a ring, helps Shohei Ohtani gets his first ring. He is now a free agent, and there's a lot of different places he could go, right? First of all, a reunion with the Tigers. That's something that's in the card. The Tigers could use him as they look to make a push after they won a playoff series in the last... They won a playoff series last year, right? They go get more pitchers. They add that to the back that's behind Tariq Skubal. That's going to be a dangerous 1-2 punch, something that they desperately needed with how they were playing the playoffs. They were really doing a lot of bullpen games, doing a lot. Having a guy like Flaherty back could really help. The Dodgers, always an option. They've continued to spend money. They've signed a lot of pitching already this offseason. There's no reason to believe that they can't bring a guy like Flaherty back, though. And finally, like I have said a million times before, or not finally, like I've said a million times before in this segment, whenever there's a pitcher on the market, I think the O's should go after him. But at the end of the day, I don't think the O's are really going to chase him. I don't think the Orioles are really going to chase a pitcher, which is dumb. They're going to mismanage this team. But a team like the Braves that has lost Max Fried, has lost Charlie Morton, they're a team that I could go and see Jack Flaherty getting a big chunk of change from and heading down to Atlanta, being successful on the Braves. That's where I think they end up. Jack Flaherty to the Braves, Pete Alonso to the Mets, Anthony Santander to the Giants, Alex Bregman to the Nationals, and Roki Sasaki to the Mariners. Love to hear your thoughts on any of this, but thank you everybody so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. We will be back tomorrow talking everything that's going on in the world of sports. A little bit less football. We will do some more playoff football coverage. We'll talk about the college football playoffs. We'll talk about the FBS play or the FCS playoffs that are currently going on between North Dakota State and Montana State. Huge matchup. We'll talk about all of that